Welcome back, guys. Looks like we're live. You're listening to Rogue Calvinist Radio. Tonight, we're going to be doing an episode I've wanted to do all weekend, but I ended up being very busy this Labor Day weekend, and I couldn't get around to it. But tonight, we're going to try to tackle this topic, and whoops, that happens. Okay, so the reason I was so insistent on responding to Smart Christian, who I actually like quite a bit. Never had much of a problem with a lot of stuff that he says, and at least not enough that I need to respond to him. But in this particular case, the Smart Christian makes it very easy for us to take a look at the premillennial position, and honestly, he puts a lot of their exegetical, so to speak, errors. He puts a lot of those out front and makes those a lot very easy to talk about in this video. So I don't know if Jeff Durbin has done a response to this yet or not. He may have, he may not ever, I don't know. But in any case, we're going to take a look at it now. And we got a lot of scripture to go over. And so I've got a little bit of a surprise. I'm not gonna read all the scripture. We're gonna delve into a little bit of dramatic audio that I'll stop and respond to and I'll explain why in a little bit. But first, without wasting a whole lot of time, we're talking about eschatology tonight. Okay, we're talking about very specifically the things that Jesus was talking about in Matthew 23 and 24. Jeff Durbin, as he does every so often, got on a couple weeks ago and made a nice stream about eschatology, the future things, and the so-called end of the age. Smart Christian has responded to his postmillennial position with a premillennial position, and we are going to go into it in as much detail as I can. Let me take a look at the chat and see who's here right now. Hey, everyone. Thanks for hanging in. Thanks for being patient with me. You know how it is sometimes, but let's go ahead and crank it up here. Oh, let me know about the sound and stuff, guys. I'm flying blind on it.
The question is, when will these things be, the stuff we were just talking about, and what will be the sign of your coming and the end of the age? People struggle with the word coming there because they think, well, does that mean second coming? Right? We're talking about the second coming. Again, we got to be cautious with that. Just because a word is in the Bible doesn't mean it means the same thing in every single place. We got to be.
Yeah, and it also doesn't mean that it means the same thing that your tradition has, you know, developed over time that it means. Could mean something completely different, as I found with my own personal eschatology that I believed for my entire life, because this is what I was taught. Even though I wasn't a born again Christian, I wasn't in a regenerate state, I did knowingly live in the Christian worldview for my entire life, and eschatology was one thing that I did have an interest in. And I was premillennial, like the smart Christian. And one of the things that it was one of the first things that I took a deep dive study into after hearing the gospel for the first time. But let's continue here. We won't steal his thunder on that. I guess we have to. Sorry.
Jeff Durbin, who, by the way, I do like, just made a video probably about a week or so ago.
Yeah, I think that's cool. He likes Jeff Durbin, and I actually like him. You know me, I don't say fake stuff. I don't get on here and say, oh, I just love this guy in all due respect. You know what I mean? I don't say that. I do like this guy.
Responding to something that Philip Anthony Mitchell, pastor of 2819 Church, said. He's doing a sermon series, or at least he was, about the end times. Now, something about Jeff, he is a millennial, and a lot of covenantal believers, a lot of Calvinists, not all Calvinists, because John MacArthur, who was a Calvinist, is not one, but a lot of Calvinists hold to this. And I think the issue is when you hold to a certain doctrinal statement or belief system, sometimes some of your rules, your hermeneutics, end up becoming inconsistent.
Okay, so let's stop there. So that this is the way we're framing the entire problem, right? This is important. We're framing the entire problem as this, which this is a problem sometimes, right? It's a very overarching general claim here that Jeff Durbin is following a particular theological system rigidly, like he's sticking to it, right? That's his story, and he's sticking to Calvinism. And because of that, that is forcing errors into his eschatology. Well, so our task is to see if that's true, or if it's actually the case that he is doing that. With not Calvinism, but with whatever tradition it is that he has been taught. Is it that he is holding actually rigidly, stubbornly to a position that has been taught not only by the modern church in America, but by Hollywood too, by the way? And let's continue.
I'm going to show that in just a little bit. Before we do, I want to go ahead and play a little bit of this clip, and let's look at the text and let's see what Jesus is saying and what Jesus meant, and let's see if who's right. Philip Anthony Mitchell, who, by the way, I agree with on this, or Jeff Durbin.
His followers who are concerned about the end times come to him and ask him questions about the end times and the end of the age and the sign of his coming. And it was Christ not wanting them and you to be unprepared.
Thanks for reminding me about that. I had the sound turned down for the music on the output. Thanks, man.
Or to be ignorant of that time. He begins to prophesy to them about the future atmosphere of the world just before he put in his appearance the very last time.
So all I would encourage you to do later on your own as you do the study is just simply read from Matthew chapter 20, starting 20.
Now,
before you stop him from doing that, this is actually, see, it's understandable that you have to say, in your own time, sometime go and get context on this. But here's this crucial line here. Okay, yeah, I get that. We don't have all the time in the world unless you're me and you're sitting in this apartment with nothing to do for the next 3 hours and no one to answer to. And that's what we're going to do, actually. We're going to study the entire context of this. And it's not just to say the word context because we think that word is cool. It's because starting in Matthew 20, a very special narrative begins, right? It's a narrative that begins in 20 and it starts to escalate. It slowly starts to escalate into, well, you see one of the only displays of the wrath of God through the person of Jesus Christ, like through his actual personality, walking, talking. You see the wrath of God being expressed, and it starts to escalate in 20, or it starts in 20 very subtly, and it starts to build this narrative along with something else that goes along with it, the narrative, but we'll get there. Let's let him speak for just a little bit more. And see, here's the thing though. The reason I want to stop there is because of what he's about to say that, crossed his mind when he's hearing this. That whole context about, let's, on your own time, check out Matthew 20 to 23, that doesn't make it into the conversation now. And so we got to bring it in to make sure we know what this narrative is. Postmillennialism is an attempt to fill in all the gaps using a narrative. There's gaps in our understanding in the modern church today theologically, and postmillennialism fills in those gaps using the narrative to do so. I'm going to show you that.
Continues. Let me ask you guys a question. What do you think the purpose of these warnings are? Why is Jesus, and truth be told, why are the Old Testament prophets giving these prophecies and these warnings? What's the purpose? What's the reason? Well, to be prepared. Is this warning given to the people at that time for them to be prepared, or for others to be prepared? Not even just Jews, but also Gentiles. That's going to be the question. I want you to think about that. Have that in your mind.
Just think about it, right? Use your imagination. But actually, all of that information is in that 20 through 23. All of it is in that narrative building up, what the purpose of him saying these things is. Like I always say, guys, these Gospels and the epistles and other things, but definitely those areas, are not Proverbs. Okay? what I mean by that is you cannot take these verses out by themselves and take them to the closet and meditate on them. If you do so, your imagination gets involved, right? Though, if you're going to do that with this, you got to take all of 20 to 23 and Daniel 9 and Ezra 7 and the book of Revelation to your closet with you and meditate on the whole structure at the same time. These verses here, we can't just pick them out. If we do that, we lose too much of the narrative, is the point.
You're thinking about why Jesus gives this warning, why they need to be looking for these particular signs. What's the point? Now let's go back and listen to Jeff.
From 20 to fully through to 23. Okay, just read those few short chapters. Read that. He says, therefore, verse 34.
All right, now we're going to stop him, actually. And now we are going to do that, except we're going to do that in this form. We're going to do that here where the narrative begins, okay? And I'm going to talk some as we're going. I'm also going to show it on the screen here. Let me zoom in, font size, extra large. I'll zoom in too. Oh, too much. Much too much. Oh, whoops. Okay, so we're after this parable is where we are beginning, right here in verse 17. Jesus begins this narrative with a striking claim here. We'll let it play for a little bit.
Now Jesus, going up to Jerusalem, took the 12 disciples aside on the road and said to them,
Behold, we are going up to Jerusalem, and the Son of Man will be betrayed to the chief priests and to the scribes, and they will condemn him to death, and deliver him to the Gentiles to mock, and to scourge, and to crucify. And the third day he will rise again.
All right, so that's the start of our narrative here, right? What a great opener to this. Jesus has been walking and talking and doing miraculous things and being transfigured on the mount and all of these things, right? Just wise teachings and mostly positive sayings, you know what I mean? Nothing real terrible until now. Right, and that's expressed even through our sudden musical change they really understood what's happening here. Well, Jesus is suddenly dropping it. All right, it's time to go to Jerusalem, right? We're going to Jerusalem, and he brings in the chief priests and the scribes into the conversation, right? He brings them in as the enemy who is going to condemn him. This is important because this group suddenly takes over as a very clear enemy beginning right here, where as the narrative starts to escalate. Now we're going to let it play for a little bit longer.
Then the mother of Zebedee's sons came to him with her sons, kneeling down and asking something from him.
What do you wish?
Grant that these 2 sons of mine may sit, one on your right hand and the other on the left in your kingdom.
You do not know what you ask. Are you able to drink the cup that I am about to drink, and be baptized with the baptism that I am baptized with?
Okay, now here's why I say we're very subtly, the wrath of God is starting to be expressed through Jesus right now as this narrative begins. What is this cup, right? It's the cup of God's wrath that he's about to drink. And they're asking for them to be one on his left hand and his right hand, and Jesus is like, you don't know what you ask. That requires a certain kind of baptism that you may or may not be able to drink, right? So that's what that's where the wrath of God is beginning to be talked about here. And they say we are able. And in fact, we know for a fact that they were indeed able. They did go through the baptism that Jesus would go through here, the kind of suffering. They were crucified, some upside down, boiled in oil, and everything else. But
we are able.
You will indeed drink my cup and be baptized with the baptism that I am baptized with.
That's a prophecy fulfilled
But
after
to sit
Scripture.
on my right hand and on my left is not mine to give, but it is for those for whom it is prepared by my Father."
And when the 10 heard it, they were greatly displeased with the 2 brothers. But Jesus called them to himself.
"You know that the rulers of the Gentiles lord it over them, and those who are great exercise authority over them. Yet it shall not be so among you. But whoever desires to become great among you, let him be your servant. And whoever desires to be first among you, let him be your slave. Just as the Son of Man did not come to be served, but to serve, and to give his life a ransom for many."
Now as they went out of Jericho, a great multitude followed him. And behold, 2 blind men sitting by the road, when they heard that Jesus was passing by, cried out,
Have mercy on us, O Lord, Son of David.
Then the multitude warned them that they should be quiet. But they cried out all the more,
Have mercy on us, O Lord, Son of David. Son of David.
So Jesus stood still and called them.
What do you want me to do for you?
Lord, that our eyes may be opened.
So Jesus had compassion and touched their eyes. And immediately their eyes received sight, and they followed him.
Okay, so Jesus is making his meandering path towards Jerusalem, his triumphant entry into Jerusalem. And we're going to see some important stuff happen in this chapter coming up. Not a lot more to say until then, though.
Now when they drew near Jerusalem and came to Bethphage at the Mount of Olives, then Jesus sent 2 disciples, saying to them,
Go into the village opposite you, and immediately you will find a donkey tied and a colt with her. Loose them and bring them to me. And if anyone says anything to you, you shall say, The Lord has need of them, and immediately he will send them.
All this was done, that it might be fulfilled which was spoken by the prophet.
Tell the daughter of Zion, Behold, your king is coming to you, lowly and sitting on a donkey, a colt, the foal of a donkey.
Okay, now look here. This is very important because we're bringing in very important prophecies that are speaking of the arrival of the kingdom of God. Okay, this triumphant entry into Jerusalem here is the king coming unto Jerusalem. He's riding on a donkey, but he's still the king, right? He's humbly coming to his city, to his temple. This is him bringing the kingdom according to the Old Testament. And let's continue.
So the disciples went and did as Jesus commanded them. They brought the donkey and the colt, laid their clothes on them, and set him on them. And a very great multitude spread their clothes on the road. Others cut down branches from the trees and spread them on the road. Then the multitudes who went before and those who followed cried out,
Hosanna to the Son of David! Blessed is he who comes in the name of the Lord! Hosanna in the highest!
And when he had come into Jerusalem, all the city was moved.
Who is this?
This is Jesus, the prophet from Nazareth of Galilee.
All right, here we go. Where's the first split? What does Jesus do as soon as he enters Jerusalem? He's been making this meandering path, doing miracles, teaching random things. As soon as he enters Jerusalem, he heads straight to his temple. And suddenly the wrath of God is not so subtle.
Then Jesus went into the temple of God and drove out all those who bought and sold in the temple, and overturned the tables of the money changers and the seats of those who sold doves.
It is written, My house shall be called a house of prayer, but you have made it a den of thieves.
Then the blind and the lame came to him in the temple, and he healed them. But when the chief priests and scribes saw the wonderful things that he did, and the children crying out in the temple, they were indignant.
Do you hear what these are saying?
Yes. Have you never read? Out of the mouth of babes and nursing infants, you have perfected praise.
Then he left them and went out of the city to Bethany, and he lodged.
Now, this coming up here, this fig tree is some very important information regarding the coming pronouncement of judgment that he is literally just about to give, okay? If Israel is the fig tree, that is. Now listen.
There. Now in the morning, as he returned to the city, he was hungry. And seeing a fig tree by the road, he came to it, and found nothing on it but leaves.
Let no fruit grow on you ever again.
Immediately the fig tree withered away. And when the...
Okay, so this is pre-revelation, pre-end times, pre-Jesus is about to bring the pronouncement of woes on you, like parable from Matthew here, right? Because it's like a parable that was acted out by Jesus, right? And instead of spoken, right? So just keep that in your mind. It's building into it.
The disciples saw it. They marveled.
How did the fig tree wither away so soon?
Assuredly I say to you, if you have faith and do not doubt, you will not only do what was done to the fig tree, but also, if you say to this mountain, be removed and be cast into the sea, it will be done. And whatever things you ask in prayer, believing, you will receive.
Now when he came into the temple, the chief priests and the...
Now remember, on his way here, just a few minutes ago, he gave the prophecy. It was the chief priests and the scribes who were going to deliver him over once they got here. So now these enemies who have been presented at the beginning of this mini narrative that started in 20 are now entering the scene, right? With Jesus, look, put yourself there. This is a letter written by Matthew that is expressing this scene, okay? And I brought the dramatic audio in to help you put yourself into this scene here. Jesus has arrived in Jerusalem. They're screaming Hosanna as he arrives. The king has arrived, right? Bringing his kingdom. Directly to the temple, throws out the money changers. Here we go, back into the temple, and the enemies, the people who have been presented as antagonists here, are finally coming into the scene, and they're not leaving for a while, right? So let's check this out.
The elders of the people confronted him as he was teaching.
By what authority are you doing these things? And who gave you this authority?
I also will ask you one thing, which, if you tell me, I likewise will tell you by what authority I do these things. The baptism of John, where was it from? From heaven or from men?
Now check this out. The music kind of gets soft there, but I don't think that in reality that's the kind of attitude we can take from Jesus there, because that builds into what is John the Baptist? John the Baptist is the last man in a long line of prophets who was listed as the best of them all, who was murdered at the hands of these people, right? And so they're asking him a question to test him, and Jesus is having none of it. Like, Jesus literally has the wrath of God flowing through his veins right now, and he's like, I don't want to talk about that. I want to talk about John the Baptist. You want to talk about that? Let's talk about John the Baptist instead. Like, I can imagine the death of John the Baptist is fresh on his mind, right? He just started his ministry as soon as that, or not his ministry, but he started his heading toward Jerusalem to fulfill everything once all of that took place, right? No, let's talk about John the Baptist. Now, it's a very important about what we said about John the Baptist being the last in that long line, except, well, Jesus, honestly, the last in the long line of dead prophets. But obviously you know the distinction.
And they reasoned among themselves.
If we say from heaven, he will say to us, why then did you not believe him?
But if we say from men, we fear the multitude, for all count John as a prophet. We do not know.
Neither will I tell you by what authority I do these things. But what do you think? A man had 2 sons, and he came to the first and said, Son, go, work today in my vineyard. He answered and said, I will not. But afterward he regretted it and went. Then he came to the second and said likewise. And he answered and said, I go, sir. But he did not go. Which of the 2 did the will of his father?
The first.
Assuredly, I say to you, that tax collectors and harlots enter the kingdom of God before you. For John came to you in the way of righteousness, and you did not believe him, but tax collectors and harlots believed him, and when you saw it, you did not afterward relent and believe him. Hear another parable. There was a certain
Important to remember that he's lingering on what happened with John the Baptist here. Let's continue.
Who planted a vineyard and set a hedge around it, dug a wine press in it, and built a tower. And he leased it to vine dressers and went into a far country. Now when vintage time drew near, he sent his servants to the vine dressers that they might receive its fruit. And the vine dressers took his servants, beat one, killed one, and stoned another. Again, he sent other servants, more than the
We're
first,
talking about the
and
prophets,
they did likewise
right?
to them. Then last of all, he sent his son to them, saying, They will respect my son. But when the vine dressers saw the son, they said among themselves, This is the heir. Come, let us kill him. And
now that is a setup. This whole thing is a setup for what he's about to lay down on them. This whole thing is a parable for what their history has been like with God.
Seize his inheritance.
And it doesn't stop
So
here,
they
right?
took him and
It flows
cast him out
on
of the
to
vineyard
22,
and
23,
killed him.
24.
Therefore, when the owner of the vineyard comes, what will he do to those vine dressers?
He will destroy those wicked men miserably, and lease his vineyard to other vine dressers, who will render to him the fruits in their seasons.
Have you never read in the Scriptures, the stone which the builders rejected has become the chief cornerstone? This was the Lord's doing, and it is marvelous in our eyes. Therefore I say to you, the kingdom of God will be taken from you, and given to a nation bearing the fruits of it. And whoever falls on this stone will be broken, but on whomever it falls, it will grind him to powder.
Now when the chief priests and Pharisees heard his parables, they perceived that he was speaking of them. But when they sought to lay hands on him, they feared the multitudes, because they took him for a prophet.
All right, this is just a short musical break, just a chapter break. This is not real. There is no real break here. We are just continuing here, okay? No breaks. Same story, same narrative that started in 20.
To them again by parables.
The kingdom of heaven is like a certain king who arranged a marriage for his son and sent out his servants to call those who were invited to the wedding, and they were not willing to come. Again, he sent out other servants, saying, Tell those who are invited, See, I have prepared my dinner, my oxen and fatted cattle are killed, and all things are ready. Come to the wedding. But they made light of it and went their ways, one to his own farm, another to his business, and the rest seized his servants, treated them spitefully, and killed them.
Back to this same thing.
But when the king heard about it, he was furious, and he sent out his armies, destroyed those murderers, and burned up their city. Then he said to his servants, The wedding is ready, but those who were invited were not worthy. Therefore, go into the highways, and as many as you find, invite to the wedding.
So in how many different, including like interpretive dance, how many different ways has Jesus parabolically condemned Israel so far without actually doing it? Right? We're building it up.
So those servants went out into the highways and gathered together all whom they found, both bad and good, and the wedding hall was filled with guests. But when the king came in to see the guests, he saw a man there who did not have on a wedding garment. So he said to him, "Friend, how did you come in here without a wedding garment?" And he was speechless. Then the king said to the servants, "Bind him hand and foot, take him away, and cast him into outer darkness. There will be weeping and gnashing of teeth."
Now we could talk about that guy briefly, but that guy is a sidebar, a quick shout out to the guy from the Matthew 13:20 section of the sower parable and the 1 John. Man, I'm a little rusty. The one who fell away to prove that he was never really of us. 1 John 1:20, something like that. Those three verses go together. That's this guy. The guy who showed up without a wedding garment is the guy who seeds fell on stone, right? And he continued for a little while, but fell over, right? The falling over because of persecution is a metaphor for not having the wedding garment, right? Same as falling away. That's that guy. I never knew you, depart from me. That's that guy. 4 verses there you can throw in for him.
For many are called,
but
few are chosen.
What they are calling, I guess, evanescent grace. I don't know. I think because it just makes it sound weird. I don't know.
Then the Pharisees went and plotted how they might entangle him in his talk. And they sent to him their disciples with the Herodians.
Teacher, we know that you are true and teach the way of God in truth, nor do you care about anyone, for you...
Was it for 1 John 3:20? Is that it? 1 John 3:20? Went out from us? Is that what I'm talking about? Sorry, They went out from us to prove. Sorry. 1 John 2:19. Sorry, I'm a little rusty right now, guys. It's been a few months. You know how it is.
You do not regard the person of men. Tell us, therefore, what do you think? Is it lawful to pay taxes to Caesar or not?
But Jesus perceived their wickedness.
Yeah, so the presented antagonists are antagonizing Jesus.
You test me, you hypocrites. Show me the tax money.
So they brought him a denarius.
Right, these are the guys that Jesus has been telling parables about, right? They're the guys who've been pronouncing destruction upon themselves by answering Jesus' mysterious questions, right?
An inscription is this:
Caesar's.
Render, therefore, to Caesar the things that are Caesar's, and to God the things that are God's.
When they had heard these words, they marveled, and left him, and went their way. The same.
Now this is a little break, but it's the same day. They went their way, but it's the same day. We're still around the temple. Now the Sadducees are showing up. Same day, same narrative that started in 20 when Jesus said, all right, let's pack up and start heading toward Jerusalem. They're going to kill me when we get there, by the way.
Same day, the Sadducees, who say there is no resurrection, came to him.
Teacher, Moses said that if a man dies, having no children, his brother shall marry his wife and raise up offspring for his brother. Now, there were with us 7 brothers. The first died after he had married, and having no offspring, left his wife to his brother. Likewise, the second also, and the third, even to the 7th. Last of all, the woman died also. Therefore, in the resurrection, Whose wife of the 7 will she be? For they all had her.
You are mistaken, not knowing the Scriptures, nor the power of God. For in the resurrection they neither marry nor are given in marriage, but are like angels.
Just a quick side note. I love that little chuckle they gave him. Where you are mistaken. You can just almost imagine him thinking about how stupid they are.
Of God in heaven, but concerning the resurrection of the dead. Have you not read what was spoken to you by God, saying, I am the God of Abraham, the God of Isaac, and the God of Jacob? God is not the God of the dead, but of the living.
And when the multitudes heard this, they were astonished at his teaching. But when the Pharisees heard that he had silenced the Sadducees, they gathered together.
All right, here we are. Everybody's together.
Asked him a question, testing him.
Teacher, which is the great commandment in the law?
You shall love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, and with all your mind. This is the first and great commandment.
All right, so first I got to stop just real quick here, just a little theological sidebar. Again, we talk about this all the time. It's just been a while, so what is the greatest commandment, guys? Love God. Not love is only true if it's between me and you and it's free and it's a real decision made from the heart for real. No. To love God is a command from God, not only a command, but the greatest command. So if, like, as in, if you don't love God, you'll burn. You'll burn in hell. It's judgment for not loving God. That's a command. You have to. So much for Disney love.
And the second is like it. You shall love your neighbor as yourself. On these 2 commandments hang all the law and the prophets.
While the Pharisees were gathered together, Jesus asked them,
What do you think about the Christ? Whose son is he?
The son of David.
How then does David in the Spirit call him Lord, saying...
All right, we're bringing in Psalm 110 here. This is a very important narrative for Jesus to be discussing as having just triumphantly entered Jerusalem. You understand? Very important here.
The Lord said to my Lord, Sit at my right hand, till I make your enemies your footstool. If David then calls him Lord, how is he his son?
And no one was able to answer him.
And just sidebar that idea for just a second. My right hand, we gloss over that a lot, but file it away. I'm going to talk about that more in depth later. Sit at my right hand. There's more to that than meets the eye.
A word, nor from that day on did anyone dare question him anymore.
Same narrative, same story that's been building. Now it's about to peak. It's coming to the peak here, okay?
Then
the wrath of
Jesus
God
spoke to the multitude.
The wrath of God started subtly way back in the day, right? Back in verse 20, talking about the cup that he was about to drink, asking if his disciples can drink that cup too. If you don't know the narrative in full, you don't even know what he's talking about there, right? It's a very subtle shout out to the wrath of God, which is about to be displayed in more certain terms than any prophet who ever displayed the wrath of God with words.
And to his disciples.
The scribes and the Pharisees sit in Moses' seat. Therefore, whatever they tell you to observe, that observe and do. But do not do according to their works. For they say and do not do. For they bind heavy burdens, hard to bear, and lay them on men's shoulders. But they themselves will not move them with one of their fingers. But all their works they do to be seen by men. They make their phylacteries broad and enlarge the borders of their garments. They love the best places at feast.
Now imagine this. All the Pharisees and the Sadducees now are all gathered together with the people. They are among them. Right, they're all together, and Jesus just starts calling them out here about what they do in front of these people. It's like an elephant in the room no one ever talks about, right? And Jesus is just calling it out here. The enemies, by the way, right? The antagonists that he presented in Matthew 20 as the people who were about to kill him, or hand him over to the Gentiles to be mocked and killed, rather.
Feasts, the best seats in the synagogues, greetings in the marketplaces, and to be called by men, Rabbi, Rabbi. But you, do not be called Rabbi, for one is your teacher, the Christ, and you are all brethren. Do not call anyone on earth your father, for one is your Father, he who is in heaven. And do not be called teachers, for one is your teacher, the Christ. But he who is greatest among you shall be your servant. And whoever exalts himself will be humbled, and he who humbles himself will be exalted.
Here we go. Here we go.
But woe to you, scribes and Pharisees, hypocrites, for you shut up the kingdom of heaven against men. For you neither go in yourselves,
face to
nor
face.
you allow those who are entering to go in.
He's face to face with a Pharisee right now saying this.
Hypocrites, for you devour widows' houses, and for a pretense make long prayers. Therefore you will receive greater condemnation. Woe to you, scribes and Pharisees, hypocrites! For you travel land and sea to win one proselyte, and when he is won, you make him twice as much a son of hell as yourselves.
He's literally face to face with the Pharisees and Sadducees, like looking people directly in the eye, saying these things.
Woe to you, blind guides, who say whoever swears by the temple, it is nothing. But whoever swears by the gold of the temple, he is obliged to perform it. Fools and blind, for which is greater, the gold or the temple that sanctifies the gold? And whoever swears by the altar, it is nothing. But whoever swears by the gift that is on it, he is obliged to perform it. Fools and blind, for which is greater, the gift or the altar that sanctifies the gift? Therefore he who swears by the altar swears by it, and by all things on it. He who swears by the temple swears by it, and by him who dwells in it. And he who swears by heaven swears by the throne of God, and by him who sits on it. Woe to you, scribes and Pharisees, hypocrites! For you pay tithe of mint and anise and cumin, and have neglected the weightier matters of the law, justice and mercy and faith. These you ought to have done without leaving the others undone. Blind guides.
Just in case you don't realize it, there's a lot wrapped up into this word woe. Right? Saying woe to you, that's not a light-hearted thing to say. Especially coming from the mouth of Jesus, okay? Woe to someone is destruction, calamity, suffering, pain, anguish. All of it wrapped into one.
Who strain out a gnat and swallow a camel. Woe to you, scribes and Pharisees, hypocrites! For you cleanse the outside of the cup and dish, but inside they are full of extortion and self-indulgence. Blind Pharisee, first cleanse the inside of the cup and dish, that the outside of them may be clean also. Woe to you, scribes and Pharisees, hypocrites! For you are like whitewashed tombs, which indeed appear beautiful outwardly.
Do you hear the escalation? Look, the narrator, the production, the editor, they understood the escalation that began in 20. Can you feel the peak coming here? They're doing such a good job.
And all uncleanness. Even so, you also outwardly appear righteous to men, but inside you are full of hypocrisy and lawlessness. Woe to you, scribes and Pharisees, hypocrites! Because you build the tombs of the prophets and adorn the monuments of the righteous, and say, if we had lived in the days of our fathers, we would not have been partakers with them in the blood of the prophets. Therefore you are witnesses against yourselves.
So finally he wraps it back up, right? Remember earlier, it was all easy. Now you want to talk about what authority I have. Let's talk about John the Baptist. What authority did he have, right? Subtle. Now we're wrapping it all up. We're bringing in the blood of the prophets now against these people. It's the reason for the season.
You are sons of those who murdered the prophets. Fill up then the measure of your father's guilt. Serpents, brood of vipers, how can you escape the condemnation of hell? Therefore, indeed, I send you prophets, wise men, and scribes. Some of them you will kill and crucify, and some of them you will scourge in your synagogues and persecute from city to city, that on you may come all the righteous bloodshed on the earth, from the blood.
Don't skip over that. What is this? Huh? Therefore, indeed, I send you prophets, wise men, and scribes. Some of them you will kill. Okay, now we're not only talking about the righteous blood of Abel, Zechariah, and to John the Baptist, and soon Jesus, right? We're talking about those that they will kill, right? Those that were to drink the same cup that Jesus was to drink, that he said that they will have the baptism of. This is it, right here. He's telling them, the Pharisees and the Sadducees, that they are going to be baptizing more, right? They are going to be killing and crucifying more after that. And that, my friends, is the great tribulation of the church. But we're going to prove that. I just wanted to frame that here, but I'm going to tell you why.
Of righteous Abel to the blood of Zechariah, son of Berechiah, whom you murdered between the temple and the altar. Assuredly, I say to you, all these things will come upon this generation. O Jerusalem, Jerusalem, the one who kills the prophets and stones those who are sent to her. How often I wanted to gather your children together as...
Now, after all of that, right? After all of that seriousness, right? The building up of that narrative that started in 20, culminating in this pronouncement of judgment due to the blood of righteous Abel to the blood of Zechariah, son of Berechiah, whom you murdered between the temple and the altar. Assuredly, I say to you, all these things will come upon this generation. And he has been, okay, obviously I'm adding in some dramatic things with him looking Pharisees in the eyes as he's saying this. But you're there, right? Hopefully you're there. Because this narrative has been building since 20. This is not a proverb in which Jesus is saying all these things will come upon this generation, and then you have to use critical reasoning and puzzle solving abilities to figure out which generation 2, 3, 4,000 years later that he could have been talking about. Put yourself in the narrative. Put yourself there on the street. Be a disciple standing by, blushing, right? Because they're like, hey, man, we've been telling people about you. You've been healing. You were transfigured on the mountain, talked to Moses, and you did a lot of really cool things. You told us a really lot of cool, wise secrets. And now this, right? This has to be scary, kind of, if you're with him, because that's just y'all, right? Surrounded by these guys, and he's pronouncing judgment upon them. And he told them, these people are going to kill me when we get to Jerusalem. They're going to hand me over. And the first thing he does is go and start attacking the people that he said was going to turn him over. And they're like, wow, I'm sure, all right? What are you doing? Do you want this?
As a hen gathers her chicks under her wings, but you were not willing.
Okay, sorry. We don't have to continue with that right now. We will, though. Now, after all that is context, that beautiful narrative culminating into that part, now let's see what these gentlemen have to say.
For I send you, chapter 23, I send you prophets and wise men and scribes, some of whom you will kill and crucify, and some you will flog in your synagogues. In your what? In your what? In your synagogues, and persecute from town to town, so that on you, who's he talking to? He's talking to the first century Jewish leadership. So that
now he's highlighting a few words, you, and then he's going to highlight a couple other words as well. And from his perspective, he's saying that it's
right. And so he's saying it's from his perspective. This is from my perspective, but actually, in reality, it's the perspective of the narrative, as we see, right? The perspective of the narrative that we have the privilege of stepping into as a third audience, right? Not the original audience, who are actual people with Jesus standing in front of them. Not the second audience, who is the person who received Matthew's letter, right? We're the third audience, the church. Even, you could call us the 500th audience if you go by generations.
Referring to them specifically. We're going to see that that's not really correct.
So that on you may come all the righteous blood shed on earth, from the blood of righteous Abel to the blood of Zechariah, the son of Berechiah, whom you murdered between the sanctuary and the altar. Here it is. Ready? This is it. Truly I say to you, all these things will come upon this generation. Who's he talking to right there? Who? He just said, all these things will come upon this generation. So here you...
Now, a couple things. One, notice also...
Now, Jeff had to go through it quick, but now that question makes more sense. Who's he talking to there? It's not just, okay, he said you. That's a word that points to someone. No, it's not that simple. It's a whole narrative of him pointing out these people as the antagonists in 20 and building up a narrative towards this, and then culminating in the blood of all the prophets are going to be on you.
So he brought up all these things. So you, this generation, which is going to highlight in a second, and then all these things. And I'm going to submit to you that he is incorrect about
all the woes that we just saw in 22 and 23.
Three of these, because these are not referring to that particular generation. But let's let him continue.
Here you have an example.
So his claim is, which this is the common claim, that Jesus was not referring to that generation. Now put yourself back in that narrative, right? You're in there, and you're... What kind of a monkey wrench would that be, just by the way, to the narrative that's being presented if you're there, right? Like, let's say two young Pharisees, like they just joined. They're standing on the side listening to all this, like, oh man, what did we step into? Like, really? Surely not. It's the blood of all the prophets is going to be on our head. All this is going to happen in this generation. To Pharisees and scribes and Sadducees, that's us, man. He's looking over at his, his young companion. And what do you think? He's looking back and he says, nah, man, he's not talking about us. It's 2,000, 3,000 years in the future. That generation. Whatever generation is around in 2,000, 3,000 years, that's who he's talking about now. You can just relax. He would have been out of his mind to say that, right? Absolutely out of his mind. Anyone standing there who heard what Jesus had to say better listen. Or are you saying that they shouldn't have? Are you saying that they should have just, he's talking to someone else. I know that he's talking to us right now and he's looking us dead in our eyes, but see that guy over there in the robe and the pen and the quill? He's writing this down as he's speaking. And so I have a feeling that he's writing what's going to soon be called the Bible. And in 2,000 years, that document, along with many other documents, are going to be put together. And then the people who are reading it at that time, this conversation that's taking place around us, those people is who Jesus is talking to, not us. So you're safe, right? That would have been the most mental gymnastics. How many backflips did he have to take to get his friend out of being worried about what Jesus was telling him?
You cannot force into the future. You have to be honest with the text. Who is Jesus talking to? Who's the audience? What's the time frame? He's talking to the Jewish leadership that he's indicting and he's condemning and he's promising judgment upon. And he says, I say to you, to who? Them.
Now, let me ask you a question also. Do you think that Jesus is only indicting just that Jewish leadership there?
Now, see, and then this is why I said he makes it so easy. Yes, the smart Christian, I do think that Jesus is only indicting the Jewish leadership because he says that, right? And so it's crazy. This is how, this is the same exact, why it's so easy is because it's the same exact thing we approach with every other topic we approach. When tradition is trumping Scripture, these are the kind of arguments we get. I'll show you. It's the same exact arguments we get for infant baptism. It's the same exact arguments we get for free will. It doesn't matter. When tradition wins, we get this. Watch.
Or all. So does that mean that those who come after them are off the hook? Is it to say that the Jewish leadership of,
we're just asking questions.
3rd century, that they're off the hook? No.
Right? We ask questions and then we answer it. No. Right? But okay. What does he mean off the hook, though? Right? See, in his mind, he's thinking, well, you're saying that because Jesus is pronouncing judgment on this generation for the blood of Abel, for example, that now they're responsible and Cain no longer gets judgment. No, that's not what we're saying here. Okay, that's a final white throne judgment thing for Cain, a separate sin, your personal sin thing. But this here is covenantal judgment, right? This is God's covenant being broken and finally coming to culmination. Finally, God is judging his people for being covenant breakers. And this is covenantal judgment within time. This is the great white throne judgment is outside of time, and I can prove that too. But that's neither here nor there. This judgment is a within time, within this realm of existence, inside of this linear timeline. Judgment upon Israel, the covenant breakers, the adulterous wives of God, right? That's what this is. He's bringing any breaking of the covenant, and especially in regard to the death of the prophets who were being sent to them on this generation. It's time. I've been promising it for a long time, and now it is. I gave you a timeline, and which we're going to discuss that too.
No, because this indictment is not just for a specific small group at a certain part of time.
So he's conflating the judgment for personal sin. That's why he's making this statement here. He's conflating the judgment for personal sin and a covenantal judgment that Jesus is bringing down on them here. Right? So it can be easy to get wrapped up in the fact that he's just saying, do we think he's only talking about the Jewish leadership? No, we don't. And to just say, well, that's a bad argument. It is a bad argument. But we got to try to bring every thought into captivity to Christ too, not just the words. We got to find the thought behind it.
No, this is for all of Israel. Remember what's happening here. And by the way, Jesus is picking this narrative up in Matthew, but this is not the first time we see this because he is God. He's spoken about this in other places as well. So before we go to the other places, let's go to Matthew 23 and let's look and see on the screen. It says, therefore, Matthew 23, starting in verse 34, therefore, behold, I am sending to you prophets and wise men and scribes. Some of them you will kill, crucify, and some of them you will scourge in your synagogues. Now, here's the question. Where is this being spoken of before? This was brought up before. This was all Jesus is doing is reiterating a prophecy. However, you wouldn't say that these particular Pharisees, that these scribes, that these Jews at that time, are they the ones that were responsible for killing the prophets? No, they didn't. Not they themselves. So he's not necessarily indicting just them. He's indicting all of Israel. We're going to see that in a second.
See, he is not. He's saying that he's indicting all of Israel and not this generation. Why? Because that helps him support his narrative, and that's the only reason. There is no other reason to say that. There's nothing that Jesus says here, right? He just asks the question, and he makes it sound, when he asks the question, he makes it sound like it's an obvious answer, and then he gives the answer. No, right? Do we think he's only talking about this generation? No, we don't think that. Chirp, chirp, right? No evidence. Just no, we don't think that. Of course, I think we know why he doesn't think that concerning the personal judgment distinction, but
He says, and some of them you will scourge in your synagogues and persecute from city to city, so that upon you may fall the guilt of all the righteous blood shed on the earth. Is it just them that this blood is going to fall upon? No.
See, so he's just denying. Look, I'm not saying he's not a Christian. I'm not saying he doesn't believe Jesus. I'm not saying he rejects Jesus. Okay, but literally, he just denied what Jesus said, and that's it. That's all he did as an argument. If you don't believe me, let's listen again. If you think I'm being harsh, let's listen again.
Is it just them that this blood is going to fall upon? No.
Is it just them that this blood is going to fall upon? No. Yeah, it is, if you believe Jesus. So why do you say no? All right, I say yes because Jesus said it's going to fall on your head, right? That's why I believe it. Why do you believe no? Because tradition trumps Scripture. Specifically, the Left Behind series, Now, I won't put that on him, but that's why it's so popular today. That's the theology I received growing up. My mom had all of them on our bookshelf.
From the blood of righteous Abel to the blood of Zechariah, the son of Berechiah, whom you murdered between the temples. So obviously they didn't do so, but...
Right, so because he's leaning on his own understanding, it's obvious to him that these people did not kill Zechariah. Therefore, Jesus cannot mean what he says. That's what happens when you lean on your own understanding.
He's speaking of just Israel, of these Jews. Truly I say to you, all these things will come upon this generation. And his focus, as many others, is this phrase here, this generation.
Right, this generation.
So the question is, what does this generation mean? Let me highlight this over here in the Greek. This is Tan Ganan. Tan Ganan Tautane. So what does this mean, the generation, this generation? Now, there's two ways to look at this. One is them, specifically that generation.
Right, which in context would make sense since the narrative has been building towards that.
Or it might mean something else. We're going to see what...
Or it might mean something else. Okay.
This generation has been referred to in Matthew and in other places. As a matter of fact, even in John, other places in the Bible when Jesus is referring to this generation, who he's speaking of.
He says,
and he leaves that claim hanging there. I think he maybe tries to put that in there, but he's just wrong. He's just wrong. He just assumes his whole position into those places as well, and it's just not called for in those places.
All these things will come upon this generation. Now, every exegete who's honest with the text has to say, that's not future. That's not our future. That was in their future. Which generation was Jesus talking about? He's talking to them. And he says, you. And he says, near demonstrative, this, and generation. He's talking to them. All the blood is going to be upon you. That's judgment. He's
just on them, huh? Just on them. And notice he said all these things.
Right, and he's saying just on them incredulously, even though those are the words of Christ. And so, got to be careful, man. Got to watch yourself. Got to examine yourself. Whenever you speak Jesus' own words incredulously, that's an issue. That means you don't believe what the text is saying. You got to figure out what it is that you believe instead and where you got it.
Jesus picks this up, this statement or this prophecy, not out of thin air. This has been brought up before. Where do we see this? And we know this because he references this in what he's saying. But let's go back to where we first see this.
This is the best. This is the best. Look, this is the best part of this live stream coming up. The next 15 minutes will be the best part of this live stream.
24. Notice what he says, and this also, ladies and gentlemen, is part of what Jesus is bringing up. So when Jeff says all these things, there's more to the picture than what he's bringing up. All these things have to be taken care of, have to be fulfilled. 70 weeks have been decreed for your...
Now look. What he's about to do, honestly, and I hate to say it, I like this guy, like I said, but he's about to fumble through this. Okay? He's about to fumble through this, and it's going to be very obvious. He has no idea what he's talking about. He has no idea what other things link with this. And he actually, because of his tradition, doesn't even know how it pans out here. And his tradition just takes over, and it even causes him to read it wrong. I'm serious. That's why this is going to be the best part of the show.
People. Who's that? Who's your people? Who is Daniel praying about? Well, for Israel, for your people and your holy city to finish transgression, to make an end of sin, to make atonement for iniquity.
Now look at this. All right, now I'll do it after him. I'll exegete this after he gets done. Not
to bring in everlasting righteousness, and all these things have to be done to seal up vision.
Do you hear what he thinks? He thinks all of these things have to be fulfilled. He thinks that all of these things must be fulfilled. He thinks that. Wait.
And prophecy, and to anoint the most holy place. So you are to know and discern that from the issuing of a decree to restore and rebuild Jerusalem until Messiah the Prince, there will be 7 weeks and 62 weeks. It will be built again with plaza and moat, even in the times of distress. Now, so up to this point, we're talking about 69 sevens or 69 weeks. So what is that? 483 sevens. Now, does he mean all of these 70 weeks to be consecutive? Well, notice verse 26, and he says, let's make this a little bit bigger. I want you all to see this as well.
Now look, they have this, the premillennials have this thing where they randomly cut it off and put a big thousands of years gap, right, in the 70 weeks. And it's because they don't understand this part. And watch him. Watch what he does.
In verse 26, then after the 62 weeks, so after the 69th week. Now, how far after the 69th week? Some folks think that it is wrong to say that there is a gap or a pause. Problem is, if you say that this is consecutive, well, then what happens in this last 7 must have taken place between AD 32, 33.
Right. Do you hear what he just said? Listen.
And AD 29.
If what we say is true, then what happens here must have taken place between AD 33, and he said 29 because I think he's still trying to go backwards in his head, because if the BC AD switch, that's okay. It's fine. I think he probably meant to say 33 and onward, but not backward. Anyway, listen.
40. I'm sorry, 39 and 40. That didn't happen. None of these things happened in that time.
None of these things happened in that time frame? Wait till we do it. Wait.
And again, since this is referring to what Jesus is also bringing up, then, and some will say, well, this must be 80, 70. It couldn't fit. So either God is not a very good calculator. He doesn't know how to count.
Remember, God's not a good calculator. He doesn't know how to count. None of these things happened after the 62 weeks. All right?
Very well.
Wait.
Or these words don't mean what they mean. Or maybe the people who are thinking that this
burying himself right now,
AD, or at the time that Jesus was speaking, maybe they're incorrect. Look what he says, though. After this time, what's going to happen? The Messiah will be cut off and have nothing to do with the people of the Prince who is to come.
Boom. Now, this is why I'm saying his tradition has taken over his mind here to the point that he doesn't even know what this says. He doesn't even know what it says. He says the Messiah, he says it all nonchalantly, like it's just not even there, like you can't see it. And if you don't know what I'm talking about, wait till I do it and I'll show you why it's so important. He says the Messiah will be cut off and have nothing to do with the people. All right, okay. That's not what it says. Messiah will be cut off and have nothing to do with the people. Wait a second. He just ruined that whole thing. Ruined the whole thing. Because he thinks that the first part is a part of a prophecy that must be fulfilled. Right? But that's not what this is. Look, 70 weeks are determined for your people and for your holy city. Okay? To finish the transgression, as in, you have, it's an ultimatum, right? You have this amount of time to stop being covenant breakers, right? To stop the transgression, to make an end of sins, right? To finish it. You have this amount of time to stop being adulterous wives. 70 weeks are determined for your people and for your holy city to finish the transgression, to make an end of sins, to make reconciliation for iniquity, right? For all of your people. To bring in everlasting righteousness, to seal up vision and prophecy, and to anoint the most holy. Who's that? Who's the most holy? Jesus, right? Baby Jesus, born in Bethlehem, right? Know therefore and understand that from the going forth of the command to restore and build Jerusalem. Now stop. When is this? Know therefore. Where are we here? Where are we? We're Daniel 9. That's Daniel is approaching his prime. He's still pretty young here. Daniel is in Babylon. Israel is in captivity in Babylon, right? The first temple is destroyed. There is no temple right now. Temple's gone. Temple is a dream in every heart of every Jew, right? And so, know therefore and understand that from the going forth of the command to restore and build Jerusalem, what is this command? Let's take a sidebar real quick. Now, guys, I'm sorry. Even though Ezra comes so much before Daniel, Ezra is actually after Daniel. Daniel was an old man and did not return to Jerusalem. Now, this is it. This is the future that Daniel was talking about here. This is the start of it. Now, they have 70 weeks from here until something else. We'll go back and see what the something else is, but here's the here. Now, after these things, in the reign of Artaxerxes, king of Persia, Ezra, the son of Sariah, the son of Azariah, the son of Hilkiah, the son of Shalom, the son of Zadok, the son of Ahitub, the son of Amariah, the son of Azariah, the son of Merioth, the son of Zariah, the son of Uzai, the son of Bukai, the son of Abushia, the son of Phinehas, the son of Eleazar, the son of Aaron, the chief priest. This Ezra came up from Babylon, and he was killed. He was a skilled scribe in the law of Moses, which the Lord God of Israel had given. The king granted him all his requests, according to the hand of the Lord his God upon him. Some of the children of Israel, the priests and Levites, the singers, the gatekeepers, the Nethinim, came up to Jerusalem in the 7th year of King Artaxerxes. And Ezra came to Jerusalem in the 5th morning, which was in the 7th year of the king. On the 1st day of the morning, 1st month, he began his journey from Babylon. And on the 1st day of the 5th month, he came to Jerusalem according to the good hand of his God upon him. For Ezra had prepared his heart to seek the law of the Lord and to do it, and to teach statutes and ordinances in Israel. This is a copy of the letter that King Artaxerxes gave Ezra the priest, the scribe, expert in the words of the commandments of the Lord and of the statutes to Israel. Artaxerxes, king of kings, to Ezra the priest, a scribe of the law, the God of heaven, perfect peace and so forth, I issue a decree. This is it. This is the moment that Daniel was talking about in Daniel 9. From here until something. I issue a decree that all those of the people of Israel and the priests and Levites in my realm who volunteered to go up to Jerusalem may go with you. And whereas you are being sent by the king and his 7 counselors to inquire concerning Judah and Jerusalem with regard to the law of your God, which is in your hand, and whereas you are to carry the silver and gold which the king and his counselors have freely offered to the God of Israel, whose dwelling is in Jerusalem, he goes on to give them the edict to rebuild, right? And to do their offerings, set it all up again. Gives them the edict. So let's go back to Daniel 9. That's it. From then, Now therefore understand that from the going forth of the command to restore and build Jerusalem, that's it, until Messiah the Prince. Who's that? Who's that? Jesus, right? So from then until Jesus, right? From the decree that's laid out by Artaxerxes to rebuild Jerusalem until Jesus, there shall be 7 weeks and 62 weeks. The street shall be built again, and the wall even in troublesome times. And now listen, the part that his tradition covered up what it even says, and he said none of this happened back then in the 30 to 40 AD. After the 62 weeks, Messiah shall be cut off. Cut off, what's that mean? We want to talk about ancient languages. This is one word, actually, karet. And it means to be killed, to receive the death penalty, like because you've committed sin and received the death penalty, right? But what? He's karet, but not for himself, right? Because it's not his sin that he's cut off for, right? Because that's all that's built into that word cut off in the Hebrew, karet, is you're receiving capital punishment, right? The death penalty is being brought upon you because of your sin, except in this case, he's karet, but not for himself, right? He's not paying for his sin. And the people of the prince who is to come shall destroy the city and the sanctuary. Now, directly following this event of Jesus being cut off, not Messiah will be cut off and have nothing to do with the people, right? No. Messiah is going to be killed because of sin, but not for himself. And the people of the prince who is to come shall destroy the city and the sanctuary. And the end of it shall be with a flood, until the end of the war desolations are determined. Now, we know very clearly that Jerusalem was destroyed shortly after, within the very time frame that Jesus gave us, within that generation, within the very time frame that Daniel gave us, though granted mysteriously. Let's move on.
Now people are going to say, well, that didn't make any sense for there to be a pause. But
right. Right, none of that makes sense, what y'all are talking about. Everything that I just said makes sense because it flows with the scripture, right? See the difference in postmillennialism strives to force the narrative to tell us what's happening here, right? Just to bring all of the narrative to bear. And no other position can do it, not even come close.
They'll agree that this latter part, there's a pause to it, because they'll say, and the prince who is to come will destroy the city and the sanctuary. Well, now we believe that this happens to be the destruction of the temple. And they would agree also. Shouldn't there also be a pause included there? Because clearly there was a pause between the time that Jesus...
Not his argument is just, shouldn't there be a pause there because of me leaning on my own understanding? No. No, that is not a reason for there to be a pause there, actually.
Was cut off, and the time that the temple was destroyed. How much time? Well, 30-something years, to be exact. So we know there was at least a pause that they give credence to, that our millennials will give credence to. So here it is. There's a pause. By the way, just look.
Oh, do you mean the pause between the death and resurrection of Jesus? And, I mean, I don't really know why that's a pause. I mean, it's not an instantaneous, like the very next day, but Jesus said it would take place within that generation. And so Jesus gives the final season for it, the final word, not the final hour, of course. But, he says no man knows the day or the hour, but he knew the generation. And he told them what season to hope it's not in.
Look at the Hebrew, this... right here, let's pull this up. This wa akari, the wa, this indicates there is something continuing, but it's not successively. Now, let's go back to what he was saying in Matthew. Let's go back to reading this.
Jesus is like, look, man, y'all better hope this don't happen in winter. I'm here to tell you. No man knows the day or the hour. It's in this generation, but you better hope it doesn't happen in winter, boy. I'll tell you what. Better hope that you're not nursing a baby when this happens. And they're all looking at each other like, oh man, people in 2,000 years, they got something real serious happening. We don't have to pay attention, though. It's not us that should hope that this doesn't happen to us in wintertime so that we freeze to death while we're bleeding at the same time. You know? Is that what they're supposed to do? Look around each other? Like, whew, man, I'm glad we're safe. I'm glad he's not talking about us, aren't you?
And he says, keep continuing in verse 37, Jerusalem, Jerusalem, who kills the prophets and stone those who are sent to her. This is all of Israel is going to be punished because of this. Who kills the sons of the prophets and stone?
Yeah, but this, right. Be exegetical, though. This doesn't say, I mean, how could all of Jerusalem be punished in that generation when the vast majority of Jerusalem is dead?
On those who are sent to her, how often I wanted to gather your children together, the way a hen gathers her chicks under her wings, and you were unwilling. Behold, your house is being left to you desolate. What house? What does he mean by your house? Well,
right, the house that is in existence.
House of Israel, Jerusalem, these Jews.
Right, and one generation of people and their children are currently inhabiting that Jerusalem, right?
Your house.
And that's going to happen in a specific time frame.
I say to you from now on, you will not see me until you say, blessed is he who comes in the name of the Lord. Remember when Jeff says all these things?
Yeah, I know, Red.
That. Now, I'll pause for a second. We'll come back.
He is mistakenly making Jesus a false prophet. These arguments give ammunition to our enemies who seek to make Jesus look like a fool and say, look, Jesus said his return was going to be in that generation. It's going to come on the clouds in that generation. Even you say he didn't do it. I wish I was in that room. I would say, no, sir, I believe wholeheartedly that he did absolutely come exactly when he said that he would.
Let Jeff speak some more. But remember, all of the things that we just spoke of in Deuteronomy, in Daniel, and this portion of Matthew, all of these things are the things that must take place.
He's warning them, you better repent because his fury and his judgment is coming. The axe is at the root of the trees. So Jesus isn't all of a sudden introducing like this whole thing of coming judgment upon them as though it was some surprise. That's what was preached from the beginning with the forerunner. And by the way, can't do it today, but the Old Testament said that when Messiah came, it'd be a time of salvation, purification, and judgment upon the covenant breakers. And that's precisely what you see here. But here's what it says. Jerusalem, oh Jerusalem, Jerusalem, the city that kills the prophets and stones those who are sent to it. How often would I have gathered your children together as a hen gathers her brood under her wings, and you were not willing. See, your house is left to you desolate. For I tell you, you will not see me again until you say, blessed is he who comes in the name of the Lord. So Jesus left the temple and was going away when his disciples came to point out to him the buildings of the temple. But he answered them, you see all these things, do you not? Truly I say to you. Okay, we already had a you there. Who was he talking to? The you of the Jewish leadership. You, your generation, this generation, not pass away. You. And then he said,
so do we really think that it stops with them? So the Jews that come after them, they have nothing to suffer.
There's no proof ever given for the smart Christian's position here. He just always says, do we think that what Jesus says is what he means? No, we don't think that. Well, that's not the way I feel about it.
I think there's no punishment for them. He's going to end with them. No, that is not the case. And we're going to see this in a second, though.
He says to the disciples, I say to you, there will not be left here one stone upon another that will not be thrown down. He just said your house is left to you desolate. And then he says, the temple, there's not going to be one stone upon another that will not be thrown down. That's a big deal. The place of worship, God called us to build this thing, the annual sacrifices, Yom Kippurim, the Day of Atonements, all that. What do you mean?
Now remember, so he's bringing up the destruction of the temple. If the destruction of the temple, and all of this coincides with Daniel 9. Before I forget, let's just go ahead and make it clear that this is Daniel 9 this is bringing up, or coinciding with
Daniel 9, by the way, which he displayed an absolutely no understanding of, as we showed.
Daniel 9. In Matthew 24, later on, he says, therefore, when you see the abomination of desolation, which was spoken through Daniel the prophet standing in the holy place, let the reader understand. So clearly.
Now listen, before he gives you his premillennial crazy view of this, look, okay, Matthew calls it the abomination of desolation because he's speaking to people who should know what that means, because they've been hearing the book of Daniel read to them, right? They've heard that phrasing. They should know what he's talking about when he says that. It's not a mystery to the original audience of the book of Matthew. Now, however, you should know something about the Gospels, which is the idea that the first three Gospels are what is called synoptic Gospels. And that means that they can be read side by side, right? In many cases, they follow the same narrative. And this conversation is such an important conversation. Actually, it just so happens to appear also in Luke. Now, Luke, if you don't know this about Luke, is a Gentile. Luke is not one of the original people who was walking around with the disciples. Luke is a friend of Paul, who was a Gentile, who was a researcher, who did his homework to do his thing, right? He interviewed witnesses to build these. He got testimonies, and the reason that I am building all that up is because Luke has a different way of expressing this narrative than Matthew does. Matthew's talking about the abomination of desolation. We're talking about Old Testament prophetic language, right? Which to a Gentile means nothing. Which to a Gentile is just scary sounding, right? It could be anything. It could be a big gaseous ooze monster with, it's an abomination of desolation. As the slime goes across the town, it just melts everything around it. Is that what's coming? Right? No. Maybe if you're a Gentile pagan, that's the kind of thing you're thinking of. And so Luke tells us very plainly what he's talking about here in this conversation. Same conversation, right? Therefore settle it in your hearts, not to meditate beforehand on what you will answer, for I will give you a mouth and wisdom which all your adversaries will not be able to contradict or resist. You will be betrayed, even by parents and brothers, relatives and friends, and they will put some of you to death, and you will be hated by all for my name's sake, right? You're going to drink the cup that I'm going to drink, right? You're going to be baptized with the baptism I'm going to baptize with. Just like he was telling them, you are going to kill prophets that I send after. Anyway, but not a hair of your head shall be lost. By your patience possess your souls. But when you now in Matthew, in this part of the conversation, Jesus says, when you see the abomination of desolation. But in Luke, when it gets to this part of the conversation, Jesus says, but when you see Jerusalem surrounded by armies, then know that its desolation is near. Right? And so Luke, being a very pragmatic, practical, Gentile person, lays it out plainly. Right? He doesn't say abomination of desolation, because he's like, okay, I get it, but let's just lay it out here, what it really is. Let's just, so there's no confusion. That's what the abomination of desolation is, guys. Armies surrounding Jerusalem. Just like what happened in post-scripture, right? 70 AD.
What Jesus is speaking about in Matthew 23 and 24 is related to Daniel 9, Daniel 12. And so there's a reason why I'm saying this, because all these things, we have to look and see about all these things, and if all these things have happened.
Yeah, but he expressed that he doesn't understand what's supposed to take place. Right? Because he thinks that when it says you're given this 70 weeks to put it into transgression, he thinks that that's a prophecy that's supposed to happen. That they're going to fulfill that. No, they failed. They killed Jesus instead. Right? Right? Or wrong? They didn't put it into transgression. They didn't anoint the most holy one. They anointed his head with crown of thorns, right? They anointed the ground with his blood, right? They didn't anoint the most holy. They didn't, stop the covenant breaking. They didn't do what they were supposed to do. Now desolation comes, right? That's the narrative.
What do you mean it's going to be taken apart? And so as he sat on the Mount of Olives, the disciples came to him privately saying, tell us, when will these things be, and what will be the sign of your coming and of the end of the age? What things? When will these things be? Well, they just witnessed Jesus lay the 7 woe smackdown upon the leadership in Jerusalem and said to them, your house is left to you desolate, and said to them, all the blood of the righteous is going to be upon this generation. What's the sign of your coming and the end of the age?
Now here's where he's going to make just a bad mistake. This is just wrong how he's going to put this together. He's going to focus on the word Iona or Ionion, which is the age. He's going to make a mistake, and we're going to show in the scriptures that that's not what it means at all.
I'll just point you over here to the screen here if you can see it. I just pulled it up on Bible Hub instead of pulling it up on the software. This is Matthew 24, verse 3. This is important. Check out the end portion of the verse here. So in English, we have, tell us when will these things be, and what will be the sign of your coming and of the end of the age. Some translations you're using, it uses a different word there, world. Okay. But what is it in the Greek? What's it actually mean? Well, take a look. So if you look down here, right here, the word age, ionos. Okay, age. This is not the word cosmos. This is not talking about the physical world. So they're not asking about the end of the world. They are asking about the consummation of the ionos, age. That's the question. Okay, why is that important? Come back. All right. It's important because Jesus just prophesied the destruction of the Jewish system. He just prophesied all the judgment of God falling upon.
Right, and he takes a problem with this. He thinks that Jeff is saying Ionos means system, the religious system. That's not what he's talking about. He's bringing in how Jesus referred to the end of the age and what things Jesus talked about being involved with the end of the age and the destruction of the Jewish system happening to be one of them, right? Because that's where it takes place, the temple. You don't have sacrifice without the temple.
Upon that generation. And they would have immediately understood this to mean, of course, the destruction of that old age, that old covenant age. They knew the Messiah's coming meant a new age. That's how they understood it. A new age.
No, they didn't.
So, yeah, they did, actually. And we are going to just real quickly, before he gives his silly explanation here, or not non-explanation of just saying, just making claims, just making the claim that they don't think that. And now we're going to go to, Corinthians. That's funny. Nor let us tempt Christ, as some of them also tempted, and were destroyed by serpents. Nor complain, as some of them also complained, and were destroyed by the destroyer. Now, referring to the happenings of the Old Testament, all these things happened to them as examples, and they were written for our admonition, upon whom the end of the ages has come. Yeah? Yeah. Paul just said that the end of the age has come upon them. Yeah? No getting around it.
See?
See as in Spanish for yes.
That's not true at all. By the way, whether they understood that or not, if that's how they understood it, that's not how Jesus meant it, number one. And we can prove that. Let's go to
You keep saying that. You keep saying that you can prove it, but you actually never do. You leave it hanging.
And here's the text that he's speaking of, Matthew 24:3. Now, what I have highlighted is the word age, and here's the word ion. And I want you to look at all the different ways that this word is, the different ways that it's used, the different nuances. Forever, worlds, forevermore, ever, of old, forever and ever. You know, we use this as far as in terms of speaking about eternal security.
Look, in this, what makes sense in the context, though, right? Because why, oh why, would suddenly, in the middle of this conversation about Jesus promising destruction on the temple of Jerusalem and the scribes and religious leaders, Pharisees, why all of a sudden does disciples are like, by the way, just while we're talking about this, we had a random side question too. When's the world gonna end? Like the whole world. Is the whole world ever gonna end? Like, are we gonna come to a time where the world doesn't exist anymore? And then Jesus just start answering those questions? We don't think that their questions are related to the things that we've just been building this narrative on since chapter 20. See, guys? See what happens whenever you make these verses proverbs? They're not proverbs, right? It's a narrative. That the whole narrative is a proverb, right?
Or being saved forever. But right here where we see the age, we clicked on that, and let's drop down, and here's some of the places where the word age is used. Now, let's go back over here, and I want to pull up where the word age is used, and just with Jesus in Matthew 13:39. You tell me if it's speaking about a Jewish system or speaking about into the ages, focusing on this present age that we're in right now. Matthew 13:39.
Why would it be focusing on the present age that we are in right now, 2,000 years later? Why would it be focusing on that age? Right? We just throw that in there because the tradition trumps. Right? We want it to be talking about 2,000 years into the future, and so we force it to be. There's nothing in the text that would suggest that.
The enemy who sowed them is the devil, and the harvest is the end of the age. Same word, and the reapers are angels. Now, he's speaking about salvation. So just as the tares are gathered up and burned with fire, so shall it be at the end of the age. Now, is he speaking about the end of this Jewish system or the end of the age that we're in? Clearly, it's not the Jewish system. The Son of Man will send forth.
He just says clearly it's not the Jewish system. He doesn't say why, right? He says that he's going to show it. He says that he's going to give proof. He says he's going to explain it. And then he just says it's not that. It just makes a claim. There's no explanation.
Forth his angels, and they will gather out of his kingdom all stumbling blocks and those who commit lawlessness, and will throw them into the furnace of fire, in that place where there would be weeping and gnashing of teeth. Then the righteous will shine forth as the sun in the kingdom of their Father. He who has ears, let them hear. How about, let's go to verse 49.
He just read that, and his heart was pumping the premillennial blood through his veins while he was reading it, and that's the proof. There's no proof in that.
Let's make this bigger. So I want you all to see that the same Greek word is used in verse 49. So it will be at the end of the age, same word, ionos, the angels will come forth and take out the wicked from among the righteousness. Now, by the way, he's speaking in the same way that he's speaking about them in Matthew 23 and 24. Is he speaking about the end of the Jewish system? No, he's speaking.
Right, okay. But we're not talking about just this Jewish system, though. We're talking about the whole... Right, that's just a part of it. Right? He's just latching on to that one thing that Jeff said and making that Jeff's whole interpretation of what ionos means. That's not it. I'm telling you, man, I hate to say this, but for a guy who calls himself the Smart Christian Channel, there's a lot of really, not so smart errors taking place in this video. Sorry.
About the end of the age, how you and I would understand it naturally. What about Matthew 28?
Yeah, see how you and I would understand it naturally if we were brainwashed to believe in premillennialism. Only. No other reason. No other reason continuing with the narrative that we started in 20 that's flowing through 24, right? Let's stop. Now look, the narrative actually peaks in 23, and 24 is almost like a prologue to that narrative. It's like, right, it starts to escalate through 21 and 22, reaches its peak in 23. Now let's listen to the prologue, which is chapter 24. There's a little bit more left of 23. We're just going to finish out 24 here. And you'll see why it's a prologue, because it's like it reaches a peak, culminates in this generation, right? It's going to all these things. And then they step away, calms down a little bit. It's just the 13 of them, right?
Your house is left to you desolate. For I say to you, you shall see me no more till you say, blessed is he who comes in the name of the Lord.
All right, main narrative over. We're coming to the prologue. Or the epilogue, I guess, rather. Not prologue, sorry, I'm dumb. Wait. I don't know, man. Whatever comes after. Epilogue. Yeah.
Then Jesus went out and departed from the temple, and his disciples came up to show him the buildings of the temple.
Do you not see all these things? Assuredly I say to you, not one stone shall be left here upon another that shall...
Right, now he's telling this now to the disciples, right? They've stepped aside from everybody now. Everybody's probably like not happy about what he said, and now he's stepped away with the disciples. Now he's talking in more detail about what's going to happen.
Not be thrown down.
Now as he sat on the Mount of Olives, the disciples came to him privately.
Tell us, when will these things be?
And what things, right? Right? Everything he just got done saying in the last 2 chapters. These things.
What will be the sign of your coming and of the end of the age?
Take heed that no one deceives you.
Right, so how is what they're asking him here not everything he just said instead of, right, how is it, oh, by the way, oh, the temple, oh, every stone's going to be cast down from the temple, cool. Will the world ever end, Jesus? Right, like, what are you talking about? What are you, 8? We're talking about something here, disciples, right? I'm trying to tell you something serious here. The temple, the city, it's going to be left to them desolate. The streets are going to run red with their blood. Okay, but what about the universe? Will that ever come to an end? You know? Try to put it into the narrative. It doesn't fit.
For many will come in my name, saying, I am the Christ, and will deceive many. And you will hear of wars and rumors of wars. See that you are not troubled, for all these things must come to pass. But the end is not yet. For nation will rise against nation, and kingdom against kingdom, and there will be famines, pestilences.
Now, why is it a strange thing for Jesus to say there will be wars, nations will rise against nation, right? Like, because when Jesus says that to the disciples, that's supposed to be a shocking thing, right? That's supposed to be a rare thing. Like, what? Nations are rising against nations. Why? Why is that a shocking thing at that time? I covered this a long time ago. But they are currently existing in a period of time known to the world as the Pax Romana, right? The great peace of Rome, which was established through might and imperial strength, right? Not real peace. Not the peace of the kingdom of God, which that would bring, but a forced, authoritative peace, right? There ain't no wars taking place in this area, which is the world to them, by the way. They don't know of any other world. They may have heard of the Far East, China. They may have heard tell. They may have some magical silk from the Far East. But right, they're not, except for when you're in Rome. Okay, maybe you got some Far East people that are bringing in Gnostic stuff and helping with the creation of Gnosticism. But anyway, that's not my point. My point is,
and earthquakes in various places.
My point is that nation rising against nation is a special thing at the time that Jesus says it only, right? It's never a special thing afterwards, because wars forever struck the planet from then on, right? It's never stopped. There's continuing wars forever, ever since that. Right? Like just every few years. Wars all over the planet. So, right? Like you hear about a war rising up today. Are you surprised? Probably when you watch Lion of Judah, and he's part of the problem, and he, gets you all hyped up, thinking that, telling you that you're hearing the rumors of war. Well, look at you hearing rumors of war. Yeah, we've been hearing rumors of war. Revolutionary War, Civil War, War of 1812. I mean, how many wars? You know what I mean? Like World War I, World War II, Korean War, Vietnam War, French Revolution. The list goes on and on, my man. During the Pax Romana, that's when nations rising against nation is a weird thing.
All these are the beginning of sorrows. Then they will deliver you up to tribulation and kill you.
Who? Me? You? 2,000 years later? Or the disciples who are gathering around him on the Mount of Olives? Right? Is John looking over at Peter like, whoa, they're going to deliver us and kill us? No, dude. No. He's talking about people 2,000 years in the future. We're just here to write this down so that they can read it and know that they're going to be killed. We're safe. Right? We're not going to drink the cup that we just promised we were able to drink. They're drinking it. Come on, guys, get with the narrative, right?
And you will be hated by all nations for my name's sake. And then many will be offended, will betray one another, and will hate one another. Then many false prophets will rise up and deceive many. And because lawlessness will abound, the love of many will grow cold. But he who endures to the end shall be saved. And this gospel of the kingdom will be preached in all the world as a witness to all the nations.
Right. It will be preached to all the nations, right? This is something that's taking place afterward. After the end of the age.
And then the end will come. Therefore,
the end.
When you see the abomination of desolation.
You have... No, I'm sorry, I misspoke there for a moment. But the nation, not America, Canada, Mexico, we're talking about the gospel being preached to all of these nations. The nations that are the world that they are a part of. And I kind of misspoke on my explanation there, but you have to understand what the world is to them. Like, right, Spain is the edge of the world, right? They don't know anything beyond that. And so the gospel is preached to all these nations. We literally see it taking place in Acts, right?
Spoken of by Daniel the prophet, standing in the holy place.
No, we have 40 years. We have 40 years for the apostles and disciples to get literally on boats and travel through these Greek cities.
Whoever reads, let him understand.
Then let those who are in Judea flee to the mountains.
Right, now, okay. And this part is really difficult for me whenever I hear people say, oh, this is definitely me. So at some point, I know that if I'm a Christian, I got to be watching real carefully so that I can get on a plane and head to Judea just in time to head to the hills of Judea, because, you know, how the heck am I going to get to the hills of Judea from Kentucky? That's not going to work out too well, right? So if all of it goes down tonight, I'm not ready. So I need to be saving money and getting ready to head to Judea so I can head to the... Is that what you're doing? Or are you just going to relate it to your city? Do you need to head to the hills of your city? Not Judea, right? You're going to head to the hills of Manhattan? Is that what it means? Just anyone, anywhere, who's ever in the world, ever, in 2,000 years, reading this verse, go to the hills of whatever city you are in. Is that what it's saying? Or is he telling the disciples, literally, to flee to the hills of literal Judea that they are literally in at that literal moment? Sorry, I was joking. I don't use literally like that.
Let him who is on the housetop not go down to take anything out of his house, and let him who is in the field not go back to get his clothes. But woe to those who are pregnant and to those who are nursing babies in those days. And pray that your flight may not be in winter or on the Sabbath.
Our flight? No, remember, Peter, he's not talking about our flight. He's talking about people in 2,000 years. We'll pray for them too. We'll pray for the people in 2,000 years that their flight from Kentucky to the hills of Judea will not be in winter. Lord, please let the people in 2,000 years' flight not be in winter. Amen. Right? No. Ours, right? Our flight. From the perspective of the disciples. You have to be there. You have to put yourself in the narrative. Not literally. Like, not put yourself in the narrative the way this guy's doing. As in, you need to flee to the hills of Judea. You're not that way. I mean, put yourself in the narrative as a person in that setting, right? You're Peter or you're John, right? And it's you that's fleeing to the hills of Judea as John, right? Or maybe not if you're hung upside down. But
For then there will be great tribulation, such as has not been since the beginning of the world until this time, no, nor ever shall be. And unless those days were shortened, no flesh would be saved. But for the elect's sake...
Now, what kind of things were happening back then? Like, okay, this is YouTube, guys, and so I might get stricken for using language like this. I don't know how good the AI is yet, but look. We had King Nero, like, putting people naked up on a pole in front of a crowd, and he would, like, bite into their privates in front of a crowd. He was literally called the Beast. Hint, hint. Right? He was crazy. Like, he would hang Christians up with their testicles hanging out in front of a group, and he would bite them off himself with his own teeth. And that's not the worst.
Same way it's used here in Matthew 20:20, teaching them to observe all that I command you, and lo, I am with you always, even to the end of the age. Is that until the end of the Jewish system? No. So how he's using it, he's using the word to make it fit his doctrinal belief. So if we go back to Matthew,
he's using the word in the context that it's being presented, and that is creating a doctrinal belief. I'm sorry, my friend. It's the other way around. You are forcing your tradition of waiting for this event into the text. It's not there.
24, and let's read what he says here. Jesus came out from the temple and was going away when his disciples came up and asked him. By the way, it's only 4 disciples that are there with him. All the disciples weren't there. And he points to the building, to the temple buildings, and to him, and he said to them, do you not see all these things? Truly I say to you, not one stone here will be left upon another, which will be torn down. So he's clearly talking about the destruction of the temple.
And so okay, so where's the temple now? It's destroyed. It's been that way for thousands of years. Thousands.
But
not only is it destroyed, there's a temple to a false religion built on the mound. There's a false religion on top of it. Right? It's gone. That is over and done with. There's no temple's going to be there. No temple was ever prophesied to be there, by the way. No third temple has ever been prophesied. Other than the idea, Christians, church, body of Christ, that you are the temple now. And so guess what? Guess what Satan's little tricky premillennial eschatology has tricked you into doing? Every time that you pray for the destruction of the third temple so that we can get raptured out of here, you're praying for the destruction of your own body as the third temple.
All of these things are going to be happening. Not just that. And he was sitting on the Mount of Olives. The disciples came to him privately saying, tell us, when will these things happen? And what will be the sign of your coming at the end of the age? So what they're saying is not the end of the age in terms of the end of the Jewish system. They know that Jesus is not here to destroy.
Oh, he's not. Yeah, he's right. They're not talking about in the terms of the Jewish system. He's talking about everything, right? They're not just being very specific in asking regarding sacrifices and stuff, you know? We're talking about the temple, Jerusalem, the people, the scribes, the Pharisees, their house is left to them desolate, right? And the system's going with it. That's the idea, right?
Destroy the Jewish system. They understand that Jesus is speaking about eternity. So
whoa.
This is what
they understand that Jesus is speaking about eternity. No, you are leaning on your own understanding, and you're creating some kind of like great white throne judgment out of this, which is a completely different thing. We're talking about Revelation 21 onward type future. That's end, right? That's way in the future, of course.
What they mean, not what Jeff says they mean. That is incorrect. And Jesus answered and said to them,
Do you see the poor argumentation here? Now, of course, Jeff didn't let the narrative build through because he didn't have time. But you see now that we added in the context that Jeff was referring to first, why he can say what he's saying. It's the narrative is deciding how the words are being used, not Jeff.
To it that no one misleads you. Now, we're going to jump into all these things that he keeps speaking of, and then we're also going to look at this generation. See to it that no one misleads you, for many will come in my name, saying, I am the Christ, and will mislead many. Between that time and now, did we get a lot of people that came and said that they are the Christ at that time? Maybe.
Yeah, we do.
We don't have a lot of documentation of it, but maybe, possibly. But that's just one of the things. You will be hearing of wars and rumors of wars. These are the things that must take place.
Again, that's why we talk about, now the false Christ we're talking about in Acts. Right? We've got false Christ, we've got false prophets rising up in the church as early as Acts and the epistles. And so that's something that's very clear. Paul says even now there are false teachers among you, right? and serpents and wolves among the sheep and all that.
So if this was fulfilled at that time, if that was a generation, these are the things that would have had to have taken place, or else Jesus and the prophets were in error.
Right, exactly. And they did take place. Right? The Pax Romana was broken, and all hell broke loose through the whole area for a long time. That's exactly what happened. So, like, you either don't know history, or you just, your tradition is forcing you to be ignorant. It's like, it's forced ignorance. Because I don't think he's ignorant of history. I think he could tell you exactly what happened. But not in a moment where he's trying to support his tradition. All of it goes right out the window, I'm sure.
See that you are not frightened, for those things must take place, but that is not yet the end. So even when those things take place, that's still not the end. For nation will rise against nation and kingdom against kingdom. That didn't happen at that point in time. And in very...
Right, by the way, just by the way here, look, Jesus talking about riding on clouds, Red keeps bringing this up, and so I do want to approach this idea really quick. One second. Yeah. Okay. So, really, guys, this is not Jesus promising that he's going to become a cloud surfer. Right? This is not Jesus promising that he's going to ride on clouds. Right? And that it's going to be... No. Okay? So, if anything, this is another great testament to who Jesus is as Yahweh. Because this is the exact same kind of language that Yahweh always used in the Old Testament when he was talking about the exact same kind of things that Jesus is talking about concerning these Pharisees and their house being left to them desolate. For example, Isaiah 19 begins the burden against Egypt. Behold, the Lord rides on a swift cloud and will come into Egypt. The idols of Egypt will totter at his presence, and the heart of Egypt will melt in its midst. I will set Egyptians against Egyptians. Everyone will fight against his brother, and everyone against his neighbor. Doesn't that sound really familiar, guys, to our topic about what it means for God, the Lord, to ride on clouds against the nation? This, see, we talk about going back to the Old Testament to see what all needs to be taking place. Well, this is it right here, right? We need to relate this to what it means to ride on clouds. We're not just going to sit here and imagine Jesus as a cloud surfer because it makes us feel a surge of endorphins to imagine our Lord and Savior riding as a surfer on clouds. But just all majestically with lightning flowing all around him, you know, all... Or is it like this? Is Jesus pronouncing himself to be Yahweh, even by using the language, I'm going to ride on clouds against you, right? Come on, let's get with the narrative. That's what postmillennialism does. It gets you with the narrative.
Those days will...
There's places there will be famines and earthquakes. Don't know that to be the case or not, because I'm pretty sure there were some famines. Who was documenting earthquakes at that time? Don't know. But all these things are merely the beginning of birth pangs. Then they will deliver you to tribulation and will kill you, and you will be hated by all nations because of my name. Now, who's there? I said there were 4 people that were there with Jesus. One of them was John. This didn't happen to John.
Are you just absolutely, completely ignorant of church history? Just completely 100% ignorant of church history? Why would you say this did not happen to John? Okay. What was the ultimate fate of the Apostle John? Let's just ask Jim and I. According to long-standing Christian tradition, the Apostle John died of natural causes in Ephesus around AD 100, outliving the other apostles. Before his peaceful death, he was exiled to the Isle of Patmos, where he received the visions recorded in the book of Revelation. John, often identified as a disciple whom Jesus loved, held a prominent position among the apostles. What happened to John before Patmos boiled? Before John was exiled to Patmos, the biblical story is that he was thrown into a cauldron of boiling oil in Rome, but miraculously survived, according to late 2nd, 3rd century tradition by the church writer Tertullian. Okay, so we have that story, but get this. John 21. If I want him to live again until I come, what's that to you? You follow me. But anyway, Jesus isn't saying specifically that every one of them is going to die. Now, they tried to kill John, and he happened to survive by the grace of God so that he could go on and write the book of Revelation, and he was spared and ended up dying a peaceful death, thankfully. But very few of the other disciples, apostles, had that luxury. Most of them were killed brutally. And they tried to kill John brutally. As a matter of fact, you could even say that John received one of the most brutal punishments of them all, having survived the boiling pit of oil.
So this could not have been what took place at that time. At that time, many will fall away and betray one another and hate one another. The falling away, which we see in 1 Timothy 4, this great falling away from the faith, that didn't happen. As a matter of fact, even at that time, and even at 70 AD, we see an increase of people coming to the faith. Many false prophets will arise and mislead many because lawlessness is increased. Most people's love will grow cold, but the one who endures to the end, he will be saved. This gospel of the kingdom shall be preached to the whole world as a testimony to all the nations, and then the end will come. When he says all these things must take place, have all these things thus far that we've read, have they all taken place?
Right. Now, again, you have to keep in mind what the world is at that point, right? You don't have America, right? America is a land of savages at that point, right? Of natives, of uncivilized, pagan, tree, bear, badger worshiping folk, right? We don't have nations anywhere else other than where this center of human civilization is right here. These are the nations surrounding Israel. One second.
I don't think so. Therefore, when you see the abomination of desolation, which was spoken through Daniel, again, that must take place as well. Standing in the holy place, let the reader understand. Then those who are in Judea must flee to the mountains. Whoever is on the housetop must not go down to get his things out that are in his house. Whoever is in the field must not turn back to get his cloak. Woe to those who are pregnant and to those who are nursing babies, but pray that your flight will not be in the winter. Look what he says, verse 21. For then there will be a great tribulation, such as has not occurred since the beginning of the world. Let's pause there for a second. That has to happen. Remember, this prophecy was given to Daniel. Daniel is getting ready, is praying about Israel returning back into the land. And that's where this comes from. But what happened prior to that? Remember, there was a killing field there in Israel as they were taken out of the land. But at that time, young, old, babies, male, female were being slaughtered, and you saw people killing and eating each other. That's how bad it was then. They have not seen it that bad since then. So when Jesus says, for there will be a great tribulation such as has not occurred since the beginning, 70 AD, as bad as it was nothing compared to what happened during the Babylonian captivity and Israel being taken out. Remember, at that point in time, the glory of the Lord, the Spirit of the Lord had left Israel. At that time, it was horrible. But this is what was prophesied in Deuteronomy 28 as well. So that also would have had to have taken place at that time. It had not taken place at that time. He says, unless those days would have been cut short, no life would have been saved, but for the sake of the elect. Is that how we're describing what happened during that time, during that generation's time, if we're speaking about that specific chronological generation, the people that lived at that time? Did that happen then? No. Then if anyone says to you, behold, here is the Christ, or there he is, do not believe him, for false Christs and false prophets will arise and will show great signs as wonders. Now look at this. So as to mislead, if possible, even the...
Okay, guys. I think that we've gone through enough information in this stream. It's the same kind of argumentation that we get throughout the whole video. Do we think that this is talking about that? No, we don't. Okay, yeah, we know that. But why? We don't get that part. We just get the tradition takes over and it just forces itself into the room. It's got no justification to be there. But I appreciate you guys being here. I've got my kids acting out. I got to go deal with them real quick. So we're going to go ahead and end the stream here. It's been enough, I think. It's a lot. It's very important, man. You guys can see the narrative that's painted starting in 20 to 23. You can see what's really actually said in Daniel 9. Please go back and listen to me talk about Daniel 9 again. I got a little carried away there. I think there was a lot of good information in it. Okay, because he has no idea. The Smart Christian channel has no idea what he's talking about in Daniel 9. No clue. There's no clue what Daniel 9 means. You can see that very clearly. So, okay, guys, have a good night. I got to go get my sons.